Hey y'all, this is aemok,
Madam Hexe,
and kayce.
And this is Trouble Comes in 3. This podcast discusses scandalous topics like communication and sexual health, along with kink, leather, and ethical non-monogamy. If you're under 18, please leave us and check out scarletteen.com. For those over 18, welcome and let's get naughty.
So tonight we are going to be discussing taboos. I know what you're thinking. Isn't everything we talk about a taboo? You're right. But tonight we're going to get a little more dark, a little more gritty, a little more violent. So we would just like to say this disclaimer that everything we're going to refer to is happening between consenting adult human beings. Children and animals cannot consent. End of story. We good? As long as you keep that in mind, we can still have fun tonight. Am I right, girls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, good.
If these topics are not something you're interested in, please go ahead and jump to one of our previous episodes or check out one of our future episodes. We won't mind.
This shit is not for everyone.
No.
Taboos. When I think of taboos, one of my first remembrances is actually a show that was on HBO years and years ago, which is literally probably before either of yours.
Okay, it's not just me this time.
No, I'm pretty sure it's before both y'all's time. I'm like, oh,
now I'm wondering
fuck.
if I've seen it.
So I think it was, I'm going to have to look it up later, but they had a show called Taboo. And each episode went into another type of taboo.
Okay.
And something that was really important that they said was that things change depending on what culture you're in and which society you're in. So something that's taboo to us is not taboo to someone else. Mm-hmm. And I was probably in the 10ish range when I was watching these because I was pretty young. And I was fascinated by them. I thought they were, one, very, very racy.
Right, of course.
I was
ooh, naughty.
Early middle school.
Yeah.
But they were, they were factual. They were not porn.
Right.
They were a factual discussion about taboo topics and how they're approached around the world.
Nice.
They were things that, if you think of cookie cutter neighborhood in the suburbs, they're going to be like, oh no, can't talk about those things. That's just terrible. They totally talk about those things behind closed doors.
Oh, absolutely. You dirty swinger bastard. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
You guys are fun.
Eyes wide shut.
Exactly. But so they were these really interesting things. Some of them were sexual, some of them were not. But they kind of got me interested in taboos and such like that.
Mm-hmm. That's why we should start then, yeah.
Yeah.
The taboos we're into.
I like that. So a taboo to me is something that is not commonly acceptable within a population.
Sure.
Yeah. For me, how I gauge it is when I say the thing or the thing falls out of my mouth, someone's face goes kind of like, huh?
Oh, the looks.
That's when I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's a taboo.
Go.
My life is a taboo. I exist in nothing but tabooness.
Right, which is something that we've come to terms with. Most of the things that we do, the lifestyles we pick, from how we dye our hair, pierce our bodies, the people we choose to lay down with, how we choose to dress or walk or work, whatever. Most of the time, it's much harder nowadays to not, as an individual, already be categorized in some kind of taboo.
Right. So. And there are some things that have become more common as life has gone on. Mm-hmm. Crazy hair color. Mm-hmm. Back when I was younger, even when you guys were younger, that was not a thing. You didn't see Grammys walking around with
pink mohawks.
No. Or red and blue striped hair.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I have totally seen some of them, and it makes me happy every time.
Yes.
I regularly tell them how wonderful their hair is.
Rock on,
yeah. Piercings and tattoos, another thing we all have. There are still large populations that is not acceptable.
Right.
And, especially two of us have facial tattoos. Or, not tattoos. I apologize.
What do I have now?
Sorry. Facial piercings.
Piercings.
We'll just,
gloss over that.
Okay. I'll edit that out later. So we have facial piercings. So it's not even we just have earrings and then everything else is hidden. Nope. If you look at our face, it's there. It's visual.
And I have an office job.
Right?
I I also have an office
You
job.
both have very adulty jobs. I
jobs.
do too.
You do too.
We all have adulty.
I
You just
color
don't
hair.
have, but you don't have facial
I
piercing.
need a new one. I need a hole in my face, I think.
But with that being said, there's still plenty of taboo topics and subjects out there that people enjoy exploring, either secretly or not so secretly, and that is kind of the area we want to get into today. More things that are still, most people would go, I don't know, or I wouldn't admit out loud that I like this thing.
The fringes of the kink community.
Yes.
Like, kinky people are already doing something that's like, ooh, naughty. But
People love to push.
the playing with taboos is like that extra edge of, because there's even people within our own community who are like, no, that's not appropriate. You can't do that.
Right.
So, I think a really easy one to start with is 1950s.
Great, both looking at me.
Because we thought you could explain 1950s.
Okay, so I almost want to say like a stereotypical 1950s household. You look back and you see it, and it is the male is the breadwinner. There is a male head of household who is the breadwinner. They work, they take care of the finances. The woman's job is to stay home, cook, clean, be domestic, raise the children, not work. All of her time and energy goes into building the household.
Right.
And so
We're talking slippers and martini at the door kind of.
Yes.
It's the ideal of the 1950s.
Yes.
Right. Not the reality
No,
of
Not the
But the
reality, the
ideal.
ideal.
Like if you, I think somewhere floating around was like the 1950s, how to be a good wife. Thing went around on Facebook a few years ago.
Oh, that little leaflet from the instruction manual,
it
right?
hit me in like some sort of ways.
So you're into it.
I could be, yeah. It's definitely one of the things that I want to try. I'm not in a dynamic right now that promotes that type of, because I do have to work full time sometimes too.
But you can incorporate, the
incorporate
1950s feel.
Yeah,
you know.
So, but it's that very, it's
Gender
playing,
roles.
It's playing very largely to the gender roles and the stereotype. And so some of you might be listening and they're like, yeah, so what? But others of you might almost feel a little bit offended, like, but how dare they say you can't work and do this? When we're talking about it as a taboo in the kink lifestyle, it is a choice that we as the female bottom want to have. It's a role that we want to fill. And so it's taboo to some because we are in that era where it's very the feminist power movements and you should be able to work, you should be able to speak your mind, you should be able to do these things freely and not have to basically cater to every man's whim.
Well, you're man, yeah.
You're
man in this scenario.
I think the important part of it is when somebody comes at you with the like, oh, but that's terrible for women. It puts you down. You're doing it intentionally.
Yes.
The ideal that
100% knowledgeable. You've looked at all the factors and this is the life you want to live.
Right.
So live it to your best ability.
Those are things that you hold important that you can do.
Yeah. And so like for me, I'm very domestic. I love to clean and I love to cook and I want to get better at those things. So I feel like I would honestly fit really well into a 1950s household.
Right.
Because those are things that I value as a service submissive anyways.
Right.
Let's just put the little extra spin on it.
Right, and the idea between, I think, the ideal 1950s as a fetish or as a kink is that there's a real desire to be a caregiver.
Yes.
From the bottom. Because you want to make sure that your partner, typically 1950s is male dominant, male top, and female submissive, female bottom. You want your man to be taken care of because he's taking care of you in a different way.
Yes.
And so your goal then is to provide, to be the fantasy, to be the housewife, you're his maid, you're his chef, you're his, your sex on command,
if his remote's 10 feet away, you get it for him so he
doesn't
have
have
to
rub.
get up.
Sometimes you're the footstool, you know what I mean? Like my personal relationship is a little more reverse 1950s. Like I come home and get my martini and my slippers, but the idea is still the same.
Yes.
So reverse 1950s is female-led household.
Yeah.
Same idea. One person is going out and kind of being the person in charge, and the other person is taking care of all the things.
Right, exactly. And FLR is a kind of a taboo on its own as well, where men surrender that power completely, especially in like a TPE situation, where it's like, well, you have to be a man and you have to be in charge.
You're
it's
like,
like,
but no, she
but
is.
no, and that's something we can talk about a bit later. We could do something like that, but I think what's fun and playful. And what I actually like about 1950s, even though I'm a female dominant, is the level of care that goes into it, the level of detail, because it's fun. Favorite. You know, whether it's party planning or hosting a dinner, all of that hostess with the mostest kind of thing rolls up in 1950s, and I really admire that a lot, actually, because the level of detail and care that goes into sustaining that full time. Bless you all out there, because I'm not woman enough for it, I think, honestly.
Subby goals.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any resources that you've looked at that kind of look at?
So the submissiveguide.com has so many different articles on so many different things. And I love this as a resource in general because it's not one person's blog. Mm-hmm. It is pulling in posts, and different people can submit posts. So you'll get different viewpoints. You'll get people who like 1950s. You'll get people who hate 1950s. It gives you a plethora of information on the topic in one place to figure out where you stand among it. And so I found that very, very useful when I was starting out in my research, because I could read and figure out which articles I identified more with, because you get super heavy into it, super heavy against it, and everything in between.
You find where you fit. And if you are interested in the reverse 1950s, the author's name escapes me at the moment, but the book is called Femdom for Nice Girls. Ooh. It's a playful read. I think it's great. I think everyone should take a peek at it. It's not very long, but it does incorporate that the reverse 1950s vibe to it, because it's Femdom for Nice Girls. It's not going to be it's going to be like Queen of House as opposed to like
and we'll have all of the books and recommendations, things like that. I will make sure that they go into the
show notes.
Yeah, the show notes. I have 2 resources that I absolutely love on this topic. One is called Darling Discovered, A True Story of Submission.
Ooh.
It's actually based on her real life dynamic.
Oh, okay.
I'm lucky enough to know the author.
Oh, even better.
And I highly recommend it. It's a very, very good read.
I'm going to have to read it now.
I think I have a copy.
Oh, yay.
Even for you. But it's accessible. You can get it on Amazon, other
library,
book realtors. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of libraries.
Right.
Tell your library to order if they don't already. It gives a really good look into not just the how you do the things, but like how it impacts her world, which I absolutely love. And then the other one, which I'm actually going to possibly hand off to Kaitlyn, is called Miss Abernathy's Omnibus.
Ooh. I think I've actually read that one. That one I have read.
That one's like it's a 2-part book, because it's both of Miss Abernathy's books. And the first one is about like creating relationships and things like that. And then the second one is actually like S-type specific for each week. It's 52 exercises, and then each week looks at a different thing.
Yeah, it's like a workbook. Yeah.
Sorry, the knowledge slut in me is coming right now.
That's fine.
She's literally falling over happy, doing all of the I need to remember thing pokes. But yeah, so I think it's a really great if you're. It's not the best edited, which I admit is a problem for me.
Right.
But if you can get past that, the information in that, it is not so detrimental that I couldn't get through it.
That's fair.
It's just the librarian in you is like...
the librarian, the editor in me is like... But the text, the meat of the text, I thought was very, very useful for me when I was first developing 1950-esque DS relationships.
Sure. Also, any old-fashioned book on etiquette is a great place to start as well, because that shit hasn't changed. Just
Who
how,
is it?
it's just
Emily,
applying
Emily
it.
Post is like the key. It's like the key.
I got one of hers last year. I was so excited.
I like those as well.
Another workbook, and it's a workbook kind of like yours. It's not specifically catered to 1950s household, but it is very much so service oriented. So a lot of the exercises pull to where it could be useful for 1950s, and it is Where I Am Led, a service exploration workbook. I have only made it one exercise in because life got crazy after I got it.
All the time now with this world pandemic, we're suffering from that.
And so, but it's something I wanted to do more of. But it's very in depth, and so it walks you through exercises, and it will be a little hard to go through if you're not already in a dynamic, or you don't have an ideal like person that you like think of when you think of a dynamic. Because it goes through things like exercises such as your D-type would like you to make a garden, so plan the garden for them. And so you do have to kind of have it in mind what you would.
So, pet play
Oh, so we'll go from housewife to the pets.
Yes.
Keeping it in the family, as it were. Yes. So, pet play. First, I'd like to say a difference real quick between, and I was talking to my boy about this the other day, pet play, like American pet play versus European pet play.
Okay.
Because I feel like the way, like in Germany and Europe, we treat puppies is like dark pet play for Americans.
Well, wouldn't that be more kind of catered towards like the leather, like puppy almost?
It depends.
I don't know if we want to split those hairs. Right
Okay.
now. But just for our listeners, in case you're not familiar with European style BDSM, pet play in particular, dog, the puppy, you're a dog. You're not human. You're beneath humans. It is a style of play that focuses around like humiliation and degradation. Yes, darling.
So, American pet play.
Did it start this way?
Puppy play particularly started, at least in like gay culture, gay
Right.
community. It was leather.
Okay.
And it was a way of kind of punishing, dehumanizing somebody when they fucked up.
Yeah.
And so they would tie their legs to, like up and tie their arms up, and they'd have to
walk
walk
on
on
the knees
walk
and-
on their elbows and their knees. And it was a dehumanizing thing.
Yes.
As time went on, there were some people who were like, "Oh, this is kind of hot," and so
Liberating.
Like so much of our kink. Somebody was like, "We're gonna punish you," and then somebody was like,
But I like
me more, Daddy, punish me more,
Daddy, please.
Please.
and
Yes,
it evolved into what we see today. And the puppy community is actually going in through a huge shift right now as well, because there are more female pups, there are more trans pups, there are different kinds of pups coming out that are
Not
broadening.
quote, traditional puppy.
Yeah, exactly. So it did kind of start the same way.
Right.
We just added an extra.
Sure.
And there are still players who play in that
Mode. Yeah.
mode of dehumanizing, humiliation, things like that.
So we're using our local Florida community and really our local Bay Area community as a reference point, because obviously other, West Coast or Northeast might be different. So we can only really use our reference point when we're talking about these things.
Yeah.
But, so let's talk about dark pet play.
Yeah.
Let's ask our pets in the room here.
That is for aemok.
She's like,
I got the bus. You get the bus too.
Oh, thanks.
I'm ready.
So I have only just started getting into publicly, outside of my very close knit group, playing with my pup space at all, or my dark pup space. It is, when puppies romp and play, it's generally, lighthearted and fun, and they're like chasing balls and getting scritches and doing all those things.
Touching noses and being sweet.
Yeah. Or roughhousing.
Right,
but
yeah.
in a very
As
playful
imagine
manner.
a dog park. When you go with your regular dog, you see them rough around with each other. This is what a mosh is.
Right. Dark play tends to move into more of that, like, very rough, asserting dominance and sex play.
Right, sexual pet play.
There are a lot of people who are like, absolutely no, you cannot have sex when you're in pet space. It's not a thing. But at the same time, there are tons of other people who are like, actually, it's really hot.
Right.
Like, doggy style is named doggy style for a reason. Let's put that to practice.
Right. Do you find in your experiences particularly in the gay pup community, since you have more exposure to this, do you find that it's more acceptable if both partners are in pup space? Because you see dogs hump each other all the time. Or do you find it's more of a taboo when one is more of like in a handler or human state and one is more in the puppy mode? Do you find that's a bit more of the dicey bit?
So I really can't attest to that, because most of the spaces that I've been to where there have been pup moshes and things like that, there is not allowed to be sexual play within those spaces.
Right.
Dark pet play, particularly dark puppy play, is very
Personal.
similar in like the strict people either love it or hate it as dark age play, which is something I have more experience in.
Sure. And we'll get to that. Don't worry. Hold on, folks.
But so I can't attest to if both people are in it or only one person is in it. It could, for me, I'm down for either.
Right. If you're the puppy.
If I'm the puppy.
Or the human.
Or the human.
Okay.
One of my partners is also a puppy. And I would absolutely love...
Oh, I'll fuck that
like,
puppy.
you have fucked that puppy. Sorry. One of our partners is a puppy.
Fuck that puppy.
But I absolutely would love to, like, fuck that puppy shit up.
You know what? I'm going to be a little bit of a pervert right now. I'd love
it.
to watch you both in pup mode and him fuck you.
We're
talking about taboos. It's not inappropriate.
I'm just
I'm actually,
if you're listening.
I'm actually completely okay with this.
Wait, can I watch too?
I'm a dirty voyeur for anyone who cared to know.
And I'm an exhibitionist.
Yay!
So, and yes, the kitten can just, like, I feel like the kitten could just, like, lounge beside you while these are happening. Since she's like...
Kittens do best with their tongues.
You knew we were going to break you. I don't know why you're blushing. She looks surprised.
I don't know how you're going to break me.
That's the fun.
But you did have a thought. You're holding your snoot, so tell us. Yeah.
So I have noticed a difference because my entry into pet play, because I am a kitten, my entry into pet play is that very much so of more like the heteronormative side of pet play. It wasn't
Kittens
until
tend to be more female, yeah.
Yeah, generally.
I do know males.
I know some boy cats, but I'm saying as the trope goes.
Yeah.
Girls and cat ears.
Like in the het community, it's a lot of girl kittens and boy puppies. Yeah. And so I wasn't really exposed into like the gay letter community type puppies for a while, and I did notice that coming in is because of how I was first exposed to pet play and because of the research I was doing when I was first exposed to pet play, it was very heteronormative.
She's very studious, by the way. She researches a lot of things prior to dipping her toes in. It's very lovely.
Which makes me really wet.
Me too. AKA knowledge slut splooshing earlier.
There you go.
No, and so my exposure, I absolutely hated the idea of dark pet play.
Right.
I was almost appalled by it because I was like, but when you're in a headspace, you can't consent. You cannot do it. It is not right.
Because I'm a cat, goddammit.
Right. And so, fair. But after being exposed, because I feel like of the two, the gay pup community is much more likely to fall into the more sexual side of puppy play because of how it got its start.
Sure.
And so, like, I have since then learned, because education is a journey, not an endpoint,
could you not with those cute little jock straps?
Right. And so, like, for me personally, it's not something I'll partake in. Even before I knew I was ace and was still enjoying sex.
I was going to ask if that was part of that decision.
And it's not. And so because I don't think I've always been ace. I think that it is something that I have kind of evolved into because sexuality is a spectrum and it's gradient and you can go anywhere on that spectrum. Okay. But for me, like, the idea of having sex while in that space, because I know how I get in that space and that's not something I'm personally okay with. Yeah. But I have definitely been open to the realms of... And so I think a lot of it falls into where you're researching, kind of what viewpoint you have, because it's either, yes, it's okay, or no, absolutely not.
I do have a hilarious story.
Okay.
About dark.
Oh, I'm ready.
So, yes, dark pet.
Hold on, let me get my
This
bubbles.
is not my story, but
okay.
it is someone very close to us.
Oh, I'm ready.
So one of them was asking about, how does it feel having the butt plug in, like the butt plug tail.
Butt plug tail.
When you're playing and when you're, having sex and stuff like that. And so the other one put it in and they were going at it. And
going at it as in romping? Or?
No, going at it as in fucking.
Okay.
These were gay male individuals.
Okay, because I was like,
and
how many holes are we working with? I'm good. I'm doing the math.
A couple of hits and the tail went flying into the wall.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So
hit the dirt.
Yeah. Hilarious.
You know what? If sex, you can't laugh about it. Like, why is it worth having?
Right.
It can't be serious all the time.
And that was the other question that I used to get a lot when I first got into pet play, because I do not have a non-plug tail. My tail is a plug. And so a lot of people are like, well, if your tail is a sex toy, then how is it not sexual? And so, like, that's a lot of confusion that I get.
I'm holding it.
Yeah, well, so for me personally,
it's like a vase.
It is part of what helps me get into pet space. It doesn't make me sexually aroused. I feel like I am one with my tail.
Because
it will literally move with my body movements like a cat's tail will. As opposed to if you just have it clipped to a belt loop, you have to try a little bit more to get it to move.
Cats don't really wag like a dog.
No, does, and so like I can't like wiggle my butt, but like when I'm walking, like the way that it sways. Swishes, yeah, and so that was another point I want to be like, just because it is attached to a butt plug does not mean you're necessarily participating in sexual pet play.
I think this is a good place to interject and say, just because we're talking about taboos, you're still allowed to say no and have limits.
Oh,
there's gonna be, when we'll get to that, the shit that we're not into.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite reason why is I just don't.
Yeah.
I said no, period. You don't need to explain yourselves. If you feel like you want to because you're trying to maybe work through your own opinions, totally valid. My opinion is, if I don't want to do it, I'm not gonna fucking do it. So just push that in there real quick.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but dark pet play, I'm trying to think myself, like, sexual pet play, I would do. Have done. Kind of like it. That's fine. Kittens, puppies. Never with a pony. Never with a pony. Not because I'm not anti-pony. I just have not been in a situation where I was in a sexual opportunity with a pony. But here's my hang-up, because I'm a sadist.
Yes.
And a hard mem. I can't beat a puppy.
Aww.
Can't do it. Can't do. And I used to hate it also, like, back home, like when someone was being shamed, like you'd have to kick the dog as it went by and spit on it, and then I'm just like, but I can't. But it's so cute, the fucking mask. Oh my god, the puppy head. I love it so much. I can't. It's really hard. So if I'm going to have a dark scene, it's going to be sexual in nature. It's not going to be necessarily pain in nature. Like, I might pull your scruff, kick you a little bit, but as far as like the full on like beating or humiliation, I just can't do it. I'm just a big softie.
Can you beat a kitty?
Oh, I will whip a kitten, but mainly because of the sounds they make.
And I'm pretty sure because it might be you.
Right. I think it's the mask thing. Sorry. So the kittens I've played with, like, for pain scenes, they don't wear like a full hood. Maybe the full hood would trick my brain a little bit, like with puppies. But if it's just the ears or the tail or the demeanor, no, you're definitely going down.
Good to know.
Just so you know.
I will gladly go down for you any day, madam.
Look who's getting brave. She's like, just gonna drown in my bubble bath. All right, my darling. Shall we move on?
Yes. Dark age play.
Ooh. Naughty.
I love me some dark age play.
Are you the no, daddy, please don't kind of dark age play, or
yes,
all of the yes.
Right there with like the fuck me mommy.
Yes,
like,
that's fair.
Yeah. So dark age play.
Let's talk about what is age play real quick, because I don't think we've actually discussed that yet on the podcast. So quickly.
Age play is where consenting individuals act different ages than their chronological
human form.
So a lot of times what you see is like daddy girl, mommy boy, big sister, little sister. Sometimes it can even be like grandparent, like
right. Whatever your kink is.
Right, whatever your kink
demographic.
And so at least one of the two players are engaging in an age behavior that isn't appropriate for their chronological age.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I do identify as a little.
I was wondering, are you more little or middle?
So I normally identify somewhere between the 8 and 12-ish range.
Okay.
So I'm like not quite a middle,
right.
But like I like to color. Right. I like to have.
But
like,
you're not doing the binky thing.
I don't do a binky.
No binky.
But I do stuffies.
Right.
And I do coloring, and I like. Sometimes I have like little meals where I make little kid food or put.
Do you have the little plate? Do you have the little plate with the dividers?
I do.
Oh, that's wholesome.
And I have a little cup that has an octopus on the straw, and so when you fill it up, the octopus starts floating up and down the straw.
That's super cute.
Yeah. But awesome. So like I'll do something like that, like I might have a steak, but I'm gonna have my steak cut up, and I'm gonna put it on my little
squares.
plate. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute.
Right now, I don't have a big, which is what the older part of
the big or the caregiver.
Yep, the caregiver. Yeah. I don't have a caregiver, so I literally will go and make my dinner and chop it up or prepare it and plate it, and then I will take it to myself.
So we're clear. I will chop off your steak for you and put it
on
your plate. I will put it on. Yes,
okay.
Please.
I'm working on it.
Are you one of those drinky little? So I'm one of those people I play with littles. You're going to be treated the age you are. Like, I will not put gin in your sippy cup. Now, if you do it yourself because you're naughty, that's your business. But I will not.
I generally don't. Though I'm not always opposed to it.
I mean, wine is technically just fermented
I had a
juice.
roommate who was little, and she would put her gin and tonic in her sippy cup and go to town, which is awesome. But me personally, it's like, well, it's 8 o'clock, time for bed, loved one. It's time for the adults to have fun,
Yeah.
I definitely love the governess role. I love that. I won't necessarily scene with a little in the sense that I'm not going to beat a little for kind of the same reasons I won't beat a puppy. But if you need like a coloring supervisor or make you snacks or kiss your forehead or pack
coloring date later this week.
Yes, or pack your book bag with snacks or something. I'm all about that shit, and I am not maternal, so I'm not sure what is different. Maybe it's because I know you can survive on your own, and I'm not worried about you dying.
Yes.
This is the difference.
Yes.
So for a lot of littles, a lot of age players, it's not necessarily the, like, we are adults.
Right.
You know, I have a full-time 9 to 5 job. I've got a ton of, like, other adulting stuff. I pay my bills, car,
you know,
animals to care for, multiple relationships. It's not that I am not an adult.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's just that I'm enjoying taking a break
From being an adult.
The joke is like
escapism.
it's all those shirts that's like, I'm done adulting today, except for I actually take it serious.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. That's a good.
so the dark side of that is when you start looking into incest play.
Ooh, yeah.
Cool. It's getting a little close to home today.
Actual daddy mommy.
Right. So again, this is not actually incest.
Biologically.
It is the fantasy of incest. It falls into that, spank me daddy, fuck me daddy thing. It falls into the, like, oh, mommy, will you take care of me?
Right.
But in a sexual manner, like, eat me out.
Right.
Oh, or
mommy, where does this go?
Right. Exactly. That's very hot. It's that incest line that they're like, nope, can't do it. Hits too close to home. That's too close to reality.
Right, like if you really actually got a thing for your sister.
So dark age play is also not just the incest. It's
Right.
also things like
Being sexual with a
teacher-student
Mm.
relationship.
That's true. Inappropriate
They, like,
ages. See?
yeah. It can go into,
Daddy, let's hide the cucumber.
Madam Principal.
There you go.
And the librarian.
priest, altar boy, things like
Yeah.
those, where there's that age gap.
That authority almost.
That authority.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In a lot of age play relationships, there is the caregiver and the little, and so it's that, taking advantage of that space.
Right.
And
That's the big thing, isn't it, though? This is abuse of power almost. That's really, I think, what it boils down to in a kind of a way, is an abuse of power.
One of my favorites is play where they're teaching me how to please a partner. Like, I'm teaching you for, when you get older.
Like, almost grooming.
Right. I love that kind of play.
You're going to have to learn to do this. Do it right.
I just want to please. I just want to, learn. And
Which is great in a group setting as well.
I'm having so many feelings right now.
Good feelings, I hope. She's like mixed feelings.
A lot of people do get hung up because of the fact that incest between actual relatives is, very, very taboo. Like,
Right.
Don't do the thing. Again, this is between consenting adults who are doing an intentional act.
And they're not related.
And they are not related.
Yes. Let's add that in there. And I think, as far as dark age play, so we sexual is one aspect of it. I think another part of it is,
Right.
now we'll get into back to adulthood.
Yes, bimbofication.
Woohoo. No, you don't.
That face.
You don't want to give a definition? You're a
That was
librarian.
her job.
Oh,
She
okay.
was
You give us a definition of bimbofication.
So,
The best you can. In your own words.
So generally,
Backwards.
when you find things, or if you research bimbofication, generally what you're going to find is going to be a female bottom who has been reverted to nothing but basically a talking hole, a very obedient talking hole.
Blonde, big
the
tits,
kind of like the
fake
dumb
lips.
blonde is kind of very much so like what people classify as bimbofication. Is a taboo that I am into but also hate at the same time.
You got mixed feelings.
I
on
have
it.
very mixed feelings about it because I am someone who, my main thing that like you cannot insult is my intellect. It is a very sore
That's your
spot
thing.
for
That's
me.
your thing.
It is what I hold on to, like, is why I'm such a knowledge. Like, I don't like the idea of not knowing something. So
That's
I'm
your
going
power.
to I'm going to continue learning until I know everything, which means I'm never going to stop learning because you can never just know everything because everything evolves. It's a whole other tangent I'll get onto another day.
Back to bimbos.
Back to bimbos. I really think they're fucking hot.
You think bimbos are hot or being a bimbo is hot?
Both.
Both. Okay.
So-
Explain yourself.
I looked up the official definition.
Okay,
official
go for that.
And it's used to refer to the process of a person acquiring the physical or mental traits that are typically associated with a bimbo. This can refer to a person's conscious decision or through changes in their action or behavior.
Think about a Barbie doll or like a Jersey Shore housewife.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
No offense, New Jersey. You know you're trash.
Oh.
It's the whole, like, you think the look that you're going for is the glam makeup.
It's the hyper-feminine.
Hyper-femme, hyper-sexualized a lot of times.
Yes. And
it's going to be...
The lights are not on.
No, it's going to be that mini skirt with full makeup and hair done and... Oh, but what does that mean?
Right. You know the type. Don't pretend you don't.
I have a really hard time at the idea of giving up because for some people it is more of a role play. You can have a very intelligent person who's very into bimbofication because for once in their life they don't have to think.
Yeah.
Think of taking like a Ravenclaw, like a stereotypical Ravenclaw.
Hey.
Right? Same.
A muck in the room.
And just turning their brain off and letting them not think about things for once.
It might be very liberating to not have to think.
Exactly. And it's a form of escapism, just kind of like pet play. It's like, pet play is more my escapism than bimboism is because bimbos are generally referred to as, like, that dumb girl. And
it's not just that. There's the physical aspect.
There is
too.
the physical aspect.
It's the as well as the acting stupid.
Yes.
It is or acting without knowledge, I guess.
So for me, a lot of times, like there are a lot of people who have called me a bimbo before because of the way I dress. Like one of my key points, like especially as a kink presenter, one of my key points was try not to dress so sexually provocative. And I was like, huh? And I was like, but looking back, like for one of the competitions I went out for, I was in like a skin tight bodycon pale pink dress that showed my tits and a underbust corset.
She looked amazing and it fit her class description. Or her competition description.
Yeah, which was objectification, which bimbofication can sort of fall under, but it gets more into dollification at that point. It's lots of blurry lines. But for me, it definitely is a taboo but I'm smart. That's one of the things I pride myself on is I take time to learn things before I speak on them. But at the same time, being reverted to nothing but, like, you will not speak unless spoken to, you don't know what you're talking about, you just agree with everything the smart man says.
Right. So for you, would it be more like a scene or more like for an event? How would you incorporate the bimbo aspect?
That's what I have yet to find. Because it's something I really do want to experience because it does kind of fall in line with the way I prefer to present myself appearance-wise.
Right. Done up and all that.
Yeah, and like I think Madam Hexe and I had a conversation a while ago about an ex-partner of mine who I was getting closer to exploring that with before we broke things off. One of his things is it would be kind of a second-handed comment that would like hint at it like, oh, you're my dumb little bitch, aren't you?
Right. So he's kind of sneaking in there.
He's sneaking it in there. Okay. And like for me, like I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I could actually do
that.
That
worked for you though.
That worked for me. It did.
Less overt.
Yeah. And so it's kind of that fine line where it's like you can have a taboo where you yourself thinks it's really taboo, but you're also kind of sort of into it.
Right.
It's kind of my whole thing on bimbofication because I'm like, I still don't know where I fall in it. I think it's
if
really
you're
hot.
not a little disgusted with yourself, it's not really a taboo, is it?
Right.
In a good way, though. In a good way.
And so, yeah. I feel like I've rambled a lot.
I don't utilize bimbo or himbo, which is the boy version.
Yes.
Which is you're just a dumb piece of meat or whatever your whole.
Or a bimbo if you identify as non-binary.
However you want to do it. I don't do it a lot, mainly, and this is gonna sound terrible because in real life those people annoy the shit out of me. That's my honest opinion. So I struggle with the people that, they probably got some intellect behind them, but they act dumb.
Right.
Ignorance, that's fine. You have to learn, no problem. But the willfully dumb,
well, and you're a sapiosexual, so
yes.
You're very driven by intellect. It's not going to be something that you're like, oh, let's make you play dumb today. Like,
right, no, it would repulse me. It wouldn't work.
Would you ever do it as more of like a humiliation type thing, though?
I don't know if I could bring myself to do it. I don't know if I could bring myself to do it in the level that would actually fit bimbo.
What about dollification?
Dollification I can do because I love dressing people up. I love like dolling somebody up and just be like, you sit there.
So
you just be a decorative item.
Dollification, unlike bimbofication or himbo or thebo, it's about presentation of the physical body.
Right. It falls more into objectification.
Right, because
you are an object.
You're a dolly. You're not talking.
Yeah. You are an object. We're going to decorate you and adorn you as a doll, as opposed to like, okay, we're going to make you this hypersexualized being and put you out there.
Which I think is why I feel like if I were to move any more towards bimbofication, I'm definitely use dollification as a stepping stool, because at that point, it isn't my intellect that's being insulted because I'm a physical item. I don't have an intellect to start with.
I think it'd be interesting for you to experience real bimbo play for one reason in particular, because your intellect is so important to you. Having that taken away,
it would be kind of sort of that breaking point for me.
It would force you to realize that there is more to you than just that.
I hate sadists. I'm going to put that on the record right now. I fucking hate sadists, and I feel like this is in my future now.
I mean that as like a kind, like,
only
self-growth.
If you consent.
I do consent.
But kind of like as a self-growth thing.
It would definitely be something more like that for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where kind of my ex-partner was working me towards with what he
preparing
was
you for that by tempering you a little bit.
Because one of his big things, and it's kind of one of my big things too, one of my big things is behavior modification. And for him...
As a do or don't?
As a do.
As a do. Okay.
And so for him, one of his big things was... And at first I wasn't very much a fan of the way he phrased it, because you're like, no, you don't want to harm your partner. And his thing was, he likes to break his partners and then rebuild them. And at first I was like, I don't agree with that. We're not doing that. And he's like, that's okay.
Word, yeah.
But he was also very, very much so an intellectual person. And so we taught each other things all the time. We had super in-depth conversations. And one of the things that talking more to him about it was, it wasn't to break his partner, like to just destroy them because he wanted to. It was, he liked the idea of breaking down what they thought they were and where they thought they could go,
and what they thought
to
they
show
had to
them
be,
what they could be if they got past that. And so I think that kind of falls along the line. So I think I would be interested to see where that went.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where I would recommend it for you, to be honest. But
so we talked a little bit during that conversation about objectification, because it kind of overlaps in the thing.
My heart.
And that's got many flavors.
Yes.
So many flavors. I will say that a couple of years ago, humiliation and objectification, I can top it for days. I love that shit. Let me talk to you about your tiny fucking dick.
Right.
I am on
Small
that.
penis humiliation.
Love it. Like,
my favorite is when they got a big horse cock and you've got to do small penis. It's like,
I never know how to react to that.
Put that shit away before you hurt somebody, son.
or just like, you're so useful, or useless, like blah blah blah. I love that as a top.
Yeah.
As a bottom, it was a hard like.
That's fine.
I was not super comfortable with it.
Right.
But it was really funny because it was actually after, like, it was hot, but only when doing to other people. And then I watched Kaitlyn actually talk at a competition. I was the host of the competition, and she was one of the contestants.
Right, yeah.
And she talked about objectification and non-sexual objectification as a non-humiliation kind of thing, but as
being an object,
like being a useful object.
Right.
And I gotta tell you, I had no vote in who won. Like, I had no vote in that.
Tickled you, did it?
Oh my god, my panties were real wet. Like,
you're like, oh, that's what you call it? Yes, I like that.
I was like, oh, being a useful thing, I am all about that life. Because, like, as a submissive, that's what I identify most as my service submissive is. I just want to be useful. It doesn't matter how big or how little that thing was.
Right.
It could be, just standing with my Sir Alpha because they need somebody around
as a buffer,
just in case, or a buffer, or cleaning their entire house, or cooking them breakfast.
Or being a footstool.
Oh, I love being a footstool. Those things I absolutely love, like being useful. Like, yay!
Yeah.
But I had never seen objectification
in that light.
It was only ever as something that, it was a humiliation factor.
Sexual object only, almost kind of.
That makes my heart so happy to hear, though, because that was really the whole intent on that class, because I was so torn between, like, what do I present? What do I feel passionate about? And that was one of my big things, because so many people bundle objectification and humiliation and degradation all together. And for me, humiliation and degradation were both limits.
Right.
But that same ex-partner exposed me to the objectification side.
Right.
Like, yes, I do want to be your footstool. I want to be your table. I want to be that coat rack in the corner.
I didn't know in English that's what it was, that it encompassed both. Like, objectification, like when I learned the English version of this, I didn't realize that it meant being an object as well. Like, I have that concept and that utilization, but I didn't know you used the same word for it. I didn't know it was like, oh, this is both sexual objectification, like, I want you to be pretty, be available, be my little whore,
which was
all that, which I love.
Also sort of a thing for me.
Right, but also at the same time, you're furniture, or you're a ashtray, or you're a drink tray, or, I don't know, you're my messenger boy or girl, that kind of thing. I didn't realize it was the same word.
I'm basically just a giant taboo, because even though I identify as asexual now, like,
you like being a lot of sexy things,
that sex object for me is hot, and it's one of the things that, like how I was saying, sex is a service, it's one of those things that pinpoints that for me. Like, I don't want, if you're like, kind of want to have sex with you, I'll be like, okay, I guess, because you want it and I like you and I want to make you happy. But if you're like, I am going to use you sexually and you have no say, for me, I'm like, okay, like, please fuck me now.
Well, and prime example, you don't like the squishy-ish of sex. So, like, the fluid stuff. I am a squirter. I am very lubricated when I play.
Very lubricated, yes.
Very lubricated. And so when she told me that, we were camming one day, and I was like, I could just saran wrap you to keep the squishy off of you.
Oh, how considerate. How
and
sweet.
Then suction cup my dick, my bad dragon, to her and fuck her on cam, because then my squishy stuff doesn't get on her.
Sweet.
And she was not opposed to this at all. She's actually trying to hide under the table right now.
Right. No, I can't. It's very considerate.
Yeah.
So very sweet.
It was, if I was just like, oh, I'm going to fuck you with the dildo, she's like, yeah. But if I'm like, I'm going to saran wrap you and use you as a
dildo holder,
she was like, yes, please.
You are my living base.
Yeah.
I
have a purpose at that point.
So she's not into the, hey, you feeling it. She's more into the bend over so I can have my way kind of, right?
Please, Daddy.
There you go. For me, it's that realization that being an object doesn't necessarily mean being
less than human.
I'm not diminished. I've gotten to do some great topping where I turn someone into a cigarette, like the old cigarette girls who carry
the trays, yeah.
And I bound them, and they were
the
cigarette tray or service, things like that.
We gotta start putting a towel under her, my goodness.
So let's talk about some things that we are like no-goes on. Again, these are our personal no-goes, not necessarily your no-goes. So
I'm gonna get the elephant out of the room.
Yeah.
I'm a German.
Yeah,
okay.
You are.
I get asked to do interrogation scenes. Fine. I don't mind that. I often get asked to do Nazi interrogation scenes. Not about it. I can't do it. I can't do it even for the role play. I have had people that are and are not Jewish ask me to do it. And it's just a personal thing. I cannot pretend to be a Nazi. And so I don't. So that was definitely my big nope, not going to happen. Because it's a thing on the dark spaces of the internet. As soon as they find out, oh, you're a German dominatrix. Now you're a Nazi officer.
Yeah.
Won't do it. Not against you. I know some people that will do it. So if you're interested, I can move you to those people. But I'm personally not going to do it.
Yeah.
For me, a big one is, it's kind of like almost like a combo scene. It's race play and police brutality.
Oh, I see. So
that
like the
is
white
a really
man
big
and like
thing.
the black
And
bottom.
so I haven't personally been asked to do it, but our partner has been asked by an African American female to do it.
Our partner looks like a big white
He
cock.
does look like a big white cock. He is a cis-het man. He is luckily does not live up to many of the stereotypes about cis-het men, thankfully.
Grown a lot.
But he has been asked to do a police brutality scene with an African American female.
Couldn't do it.
He could not do it, thankfully. It's one of those things where I feel so strongly about that. Like, I don't know if he had done it and I had known, I don't know if I could have been with him.
Don't know how you would have felt about it.
I don't know how I would have felt about it because it's such a very touchy subject that is not in my risk profile whatsoever.
Sure. And taboos should be polarizing.
Yes.
That's what makes them a taboo.
Exactly. And there are people who will do that all night and day, and that is fine. For me personally, it kind of falls into like the risk profile things. Like,
exactly.
It's not for me. Other people can do it as long as they consensually know what they're agreeing to. I can't bring myself to be okay with it.
I'll get you and I'll kidnap you. I just won't do it as a Nazi.
I think it's also in there with the like, you're German,
right?
You don't want to do the Nazi thing because it's a horrible fucking thing and you're German.
Right. Yeah. On top of it just being a horrible thing, I'm also actually German. So I'm like, no.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us have it because with the race play thing, particularly black-white race play, black-white police brutality.
Right. I also come from a family of racists who I really do not enjoy their views on life because I get introduced to someone as not, oh, this is my friend from work. Oh, this is the really nice black lady I work with.
Right. And so
what century?
I've been very much so turned off of it because I do come from that familial history of it. Where I'm kind of the one, like, breaking the mold.
So you're averse to it.
I am averse to it.
Yeah. Right. And I grew up in the South.
Same.
Of the United States. Mm-hmm. Other areas are not as prolifically shit-tacular as parts of the South are.
Right.
But racism and that Southern, like, that quote, Southern ideal that, they're lesser is very, 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 very much alive here.
Yeah.
Still alive here. So for us, it's literally that, like, this is our history.
And it's still here.
Still here. This is the now, not history. This is now.
For you guys, like, it was only, less than 100 years ago.
Right? Like, there are people that this is not acceptable.
Right.
Yeah. Also, by the way, you will go to prison if they find you, on top of everything else.
Oh, yeah.
As you should, yes, take that. Personal opinion only.
So I think that's another reason. I have been to events where very obvious race play scenes have been requested to not be in the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because of the fact that there are so many other people. Because it is something we're literally dealing with right now in the U.S.
It makes people uncomfortable.
It does.
It makes people uncomfortable. And I've known lovely couples, white male dominant, female black slave, and happy as can be. And it wasn't an intentional race when they found each other. She wasn't looking for a white master, and he wasn't necessarily looking for a black slave. They found each other that way, and they do find themselves in MS groups and things like that, where people are a little like,
and even the reverse, where the
black female
non-white person is the dominant,
right,
and the white person is submissive.
Right.
Even that.
Then it's more like the people, you're just fetishizing
people
their ethnicity.
Right.
And it's like, not,
and
maybe.
They're like, you're taking your power back finally. And it's not always that.
And there is absolutely people out there who are fetishizing
a ethnicity.
An ethnicity.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, look at big black cocks.
Right.
Definitely a fetishization of an ethnicity.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, it becomes a very uncomfortable situation for a lot of people because it's something we're still dealing with.
Right.
And it's not something that's long gone.
Sure. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure if I'm okay with banning certain scenes like that.
I don't think they were ever banned, but they were
in a sense, if I'm going to ask somebody, you can't do this, I don't know, because then I get into the point where do I start drawing my lines? This is a personal thing because I come from a country where censorship was a really big problem. And so now there's this, in the last 30 years, it's a huge push that you can't cut anything out. You can have things with annotations or disclaimers, but you need to allow it so that people can see what's out there. So me personally, I'd be like, well, how is it, I see that this is a very sensitive topic, but meanwhile, I'm a femdom who is feminizing my male submissive and equating his femininity with being less than, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a woman, but some reason sissifying him, making him a woman, making him less than a man is degrading in a way. So to me, it's like sometimes there's a bit blurry lines on which is okay and which is not.
So I have one that is tabooish, that is not nearly as I think controversial or extreme.
Good, we need one of these. Yeah, we need this. Give me.
And it is hilarious because I have multiple tattoos. I have multiple piercings. I'm waiting till COVID-19 decides to take a break so I can go get the rest of them done. Right. Or more of them, not the rest.
More. Always more.
But there are very few hard limits in my contract with my guys.
Right.
Intentional permanent marks are on there.
Right.
See, I love body modification.
So branding, tattoos, piercings not so much because I do enjoy needle play, But anything that's going to leave...
And you could take a piercing out even though it's scars.
Exactly, exactly. Mm-hmm. But it's something like, for me, it's the things that are going to leave permanent marks that, God forbid, something happen and the relationship change or leave. You know, I have a lot of tattoos. I even have a tattoo that is kind of reminiscent of one that my ex got. But we both got very different designs.
Yeah, right.
We just both happen to be Geminis, so we incorporated that into our...
Right, but you and how many other Geminis on the planet?
Exactly.
You know, it's not the same. Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of the, like, you never tattoo your partner's name on your body.
No names ever. I'm a no names ever kind of person.
So for me, I love body modifications. I'm okay with scarification. I'm okay with branding. I'm okay with tattoos. I'm okay with piercings. My only limits around it is I will not do names and I will not do initials.
That's fair.
So I could do like a tattooed collar, which for a lot of people is like, oh, no. Because I have accepted that this is a part of my life's journey, as are my tattoos.
Right. But even if you're not with that person, you're still going to be an S-type, still going to be a slave without that person.
Yes.
So that in that case, it's a symbol of
like,
who you are.
For me, like, it's a really fine line because, like, I won't get names or initials, but, like, the slave registry numbers... I would in a heartbeat get, like, if I was ever to be registered as a slave, I would in a heartbeat get that tattooed on me. Because the registry can be passed from person to person. Okay. So it's not specifically, just to this person.
It's your number.
It's my number.
Not your dynamic number.
And should either something happen to the dynamic or something happen to the person that I'm with, it could then be passed on and I could be registered to my future owner.
Put it on the bottom of your foot like a Barbie doll.
I really wanted to get toe beans on my feet, but they come off so fast. Especially I would never be able to get a pedicure again because as soon as those layers of skins are gone.
Forget that.
Right.
So for me, it's like I am all about having a discussion about something. Right. It's not something that I don't identify as a slave. I identify as very submissive, but I don't have that. I give up all power about everything to
different flavor.
Yes. And for me, I'm like, I don't like to set goals, but like that is definitely at some point in my life, I feel like that is a need I need to fulfill.
And it's just not one of mine.
Yeah, for sure.
So there are things where I'm like, I will absolutely, like, let's have a conversation. If you want to put a permanent mark on me, let's have a conversation about it. I would probably say okay. Right. But it's not something that, like,
it's
not
just
a, like,
statement.
We're doing this thing and it's being put on me and I have no say. Because regardless of the dynamic, this is still my body. Regardless of me giving over, control of my body to a partner, it's still my body.
Yes.
By the way, a slave, even if they're TPE, can still pull out of a dynamic anytime they want. Yes. Because a dynamic only works if everyone involved wants to fucking be there.
I've been in a TPE and left it, so I can say yes.
It's survivable.
And then I was introduced a few years ago to, what is it? IE. And so it's internal enslavement. And so it's basically one step further than TPE where you reach a point where you as the slave cannot request to leave a dynamic. It's basically taking away all rights. And so I know, I see your face. And so I have mixed feelings on it because at some point I was like, I do want to be that no limit slave. Not that I don't have limits, that I'm to the point in a relationship where they know my limits. So that's how I feel about it.
But what stops you from driving away and moving to Atlanta? Mentally you could stop yourself.
Yes.
But let's be honest, if you really want to leave, just call police and they're just holding you hostage then. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so that's why it kind of falls more
This is a mental level.
Yeah, it's definitely a mental level.
Mental
like
layer.
there is, I'm going to put this disclaimer out there because it was something I've seen a lot of people get trapped by. Contracts do not mean that you cannot leave.
That shit
they
ain't
are
gonna
not
hold up in
legally
court.
binding. They cannot hold up in court, no matter if they say they've had a lawyer read it and it's legally binding.
Look, a judge is not going to look at this shit and be like, keep your kinky shit in the bedroom.
It is a scare tactic. You cannot consensually agree to be enslaved to a person forever.
Right.
Contract or no contract. So let that just be my blanket statement
it's
for
just
everyone.
It's a sexy little thing we do. It's not doesn't hold up in court.
It means a lot.
But it's not hold up in court.
But it's not going to hold up in court if it's being used as a scare tactic and you went out and they're like, but your contract you signed said you're mine for another 2 years. Like, that's not a thing.
Mark, you're ready to burst. Tell us, darling. What's on your mind?
I call bullshit.
No, I get that.
I call bullshit hard because the whole point is that this is a consenting thing.
Exactly.
And the idea of a TPE is that you're literally giving over all control.
There's nothing left.
But there's nothing left to give.
There's nothing left
to say, oh, I'm internally enslaved. For me, when you say, oh, they can't even request to leave, they don't have to request to leave. They can just fucking leave. At that point, I am concerned that it becomes an abuse of power.
Yeah, for sure.
There are absolutely ways to have a complete power exchange. I have had partners where I have had, my guys and I, we have an extensive contract. Mm-hmm. When we play, there was no negotiation beforehand.
No.
Because we have a 28-page play-only negotiation outside of our dynamic contract.
Right. Yeah.
So we've already done those things.
Right.
Yeah.
At any point, even though I have, submitted to and said, yes, I will do these things, if I was not okay with it, I could still say no. If I was in a total power exchange, there might be a different way for me to say no.
Right.
But if it actually hit where I was like, no, I need to not be in this relationship, you leave.
Yeah.
If you don't have that option, to me,
no,
that's a little far.
And that's why it kind of hits onto my taboos I probably couldn't get into. But it's definitely one of those things I've researched. So I love researching things I'm not into to try to figure out why I don't like them.
Right.
Because for some things, it's simply a lack of knowledge.
Right.
And for others, it's like, no, this hits too close to home. I don't think I could.
From the top side, this concept where, we can't leave. I think it takes some of the sexy out of it. I like knowing that you've given everything to me every single day because you want to be there. Even though, I have all the cards and all that jazz. There's something inherently intimate and something inherently sexy about knowing that every day, for example, my slave boy wakes up and continues to decide, this is the life I want to live with her. So to me, I like to take the magic out of it a little bit if they truly felt they didn't have a choice to be there. For me, personally, it would take the magic out of it. Yeah. But I get where it's that extra layer from the bottom side where you're telling yourself, oh, I can't leave. So I could see where there's some of that kind of something there.
For me personally,
for some people, but for me, if I knew, I'd be like, oh, it's not sexy anymore.
And I agree with you. I like knowing that every day I wake up, I am going to serve this person and continue to serve this person. And they continue to earn my service and honor me in return and give me something I need back in return.
Are you playing footsies with me?
Oh, hey. My feet are too far away.
No, so it is a good discussion to have. And TP in itself is a taboo. This idea is that an adult human being is going to give up all of their choices and all of their preferences and lay it before somebody else who gets to decide yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. There's so much that we could talk about. TP, CNC, consensual non-consent, that kind of falls into, we mentioned a little off mic, things like, I'm going to say it, it's a little racy, things like rape fantasy, gangbang fantasy, kidnapping.
I'm in for that shit.
Okay, as a top.
Interrogation, please.
As a top rape fantasy, I enjoy, but also just in the sexy time bit, not in the proper dynamic. Rough fuck me up, son. I don't know how to say it. I don't even hate admitting it because I live in such control and such authority in my life most of the time. Sometimes you just want to get wrecked, okay? And that whole kind
it's still a service to you.
Yes, absolutely though, absolutely. And the individuals that provide that particular service, it's definitely that angle, 100%. So it's definitely kind of it's kind of liberating, and something. I just like rough sex as well, so it's just kind of sexually satisfying for me. So things like that, but full on scenes with kidnapping and the whole gangbang in the dark or the rape thing, very taboo. Mark is raise the roof.
See, I have a very skewed version of this.
What do you mean?
For so many years I told myself no CNC, absolutely not. It is a hard limit because of past trauma.
Big umbrella.
It is a big umbrella, but at the time I didn't know that. The only exposure I had to CNC was specifically
for sexual contact.
For sexual contact.
Fair, okay.
Which I had experienced in a non-consensual way. So I was like, no, absolutely not.
As a woman on planet Earth, you have experienced sexual assault. Yes. Yes.
Basically.
3 for 3 here, ladies.
And so when I found out that there were other umbrellas, and what hit for me was when I found a different definition of CNC, which was basically any event that would at some point be non-consensual that is done in a consensual setting. I was like, oh. And so for me, that brought up interrogation play.
Okay.
I'm a masochist. I almost hit like the pain slut level. I really like the idea.
You're masochist though too. Like you get tickled by
the
fear.
mindfuck.
Yeah.
Oh, I love mindfucks.
You love being scared.
I do. It's why I love you.
I mean, I'm a fear sadist too, so I'm all about this life.
And so for me, I was like, oh, because interrogation is a very big kink of mine, but it was something I didn't think I could ever like actually do. And now I'm like, okay, but I could probably do that because it's not that she is going to then sexually use me, but she's just going to torture the fuck out of me. And I flash back to like, oh my god, my Tumblr was full of like things like standing on a cold metal ball while in nothing but like metal brackets being electrocuted by a car battery.
You just want to be waterboarded and screamed at.
I have to send you a picture of it's a girl in the
snow.
Torture,
it would also be one of those things imagine with me for a moment. Let's play for
I might die.
What if we did an interrogation scene where I was speaking to you in German and I'm angry with you because your replies are in English and I feel like you're just faking it, trying to get out of it, and so the less German you speak, the more, is that good? That's doing things for you?
But we also know that the only time she can speak German is
sexy
when
time.
she's being beaten. So she might end up speaking German.
Should be
and then
seized,
being like
possessed by her ancestors and just like spewed out or something. And like, she can't breathe.
I think we killed the kitty cat.
It could be fun with you too, though. Right? Ooh, yes. Okay. So, she's weeping. I love it.
Hyperventilating around the corner of the table.
So you just marinate with that for a little bit, and you and I can talk about kidnapping and rape fantasies because you're getting all excited about this. So what is it about that tickles you? Is it the utter lack of control? Is it the not knowing? All the above, a little something else?
Like a lot of the different things we talked about, it's that kind of abuse of power situation. One of the two partners are...
She's actually tearing.
I'm so happy. One of the partners has given up a specific amount of control to the other one. For me, CNC tends to be very specific.
Right, okay.
It might be sexual. Like, you can use me whenever you want.
Spit on my face and choke me.
Spit on my face and choke me. Or,
right.
Yes, kitty. She's recovered a little
bit. That is a really weird line for me.
Sexual CNC?
Yes, because I do not like the idea of like a rape play fantasy.
Okay.
But for me, one of the things I prefer in my dynamics is to be asked. I just want it done.
Very
and so it's a very fine line.
Very fine line.
Yeah.
I can see why our partner's a little like, ooh, about it.
And that's the thing is,
and bless him, it's because he's so consent focused.
And he is, and we love him for that.
And I think that's the difference between that and rape fantasies is the intent.
Yes.
The intent is that you're being useful as opposed to being used.
Yes.
You are being a useful set of holes for your partner. Or I'm just violently taking control.
Right. Which is the rape fantasy.
It's such a fine line, though, because I do just, I do not get sexually turned on unless I am violently being taken control of. But it can't be posed in the idea of, I know, I see your face, I know. It's a mental thing for me for sure. And so I might just be basically partaking in it without labeling it as such, but for some reason,
might just not like the word.
It's the label itself that does it for me, I think.
Don't call it that then.
And I don't.
You can call it CNC sex. If the word rape fantasy jars you in the wrong way, call it whatever you like. But as long as your partners involved know what the hell you mean, you're fine. You know what I mean? But I can see where it's like,
because he's super into CNC. He's like has had a lamp broken over his head during a scene CNC.
Oh, I'm ready. Next time he comes over, he's done for.
It's come out like for me, I'm just like, I don't know if I could go that intense.
I'll be getting slap fights.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but finish your thought process on the rape fantasy bit.
Or kidnapping.
I lost it.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Abuse of power.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's gone.
But we are at the point of the evening.
That's true.
So we've talked about some pretty intense things this evening. We talked a little bit about like 1950s and reverse 1950s. Right. And dark age and pet play, bimbofication and objectification. And then we talked about some stuff that we are not really into, which again, we aren't into. Doesn't mean you guys aren't into out there in the world. But I think it's important to remember that everything, again, it's all consensual, regardless of where you are, what kind of play you're doing. It's consensual between all parties.
Yes.
Just because one consent, the other didn't.
Does
not actually, because even in CNC, both parties consented to the CNC play.
It's the first C in CNC, consensual non-consent.
Good point.
You know, there are no children because children cannot give consent.
Period.
There are no biological animals because biological animals cannot give consent.
Period.
These are different depending on where you are in the world, what communities, what cultures you are. Something we said might be taboo, something might not be taboo, but it's a fun place to play.
Explore.
As we got
when
we started planning this topic for this evening, we kind of realized we had trouble. We're like, but which one do we pick?
There's so much.
And not everyone has as many taboo things. Some people are kinky and they don't touch anywhere near the controversial, because that's the biggest thing is that it's controversial and it's intentional. They aren't, just falling into it. It's a very intentional thing. It might be something that we have in our life 24/7. It might be something that we have in our life for only a specific period of time, like for a scene or for an event. Right. Neither of these situations or any of these situations are better or worse than the other. Somebody who has a 24/7 1950s is no better or worse than someone who only has it on the weekends. Right. It's totally, completely, reasonable.
Right.
And okay.
And we chatted before the mic came on, and so we were like, fuck. A lot of things we do are in this category, because we were talking about knife play, weapon play, things like this, and it's technically, because this is, you could actually kill someone inadvertently. I would consider a taboo. Not everybody does it.
A big one of those.
Yeah, you like the sharp pointy things, but you like the the needles even. You're big into needles, and it's a bit like
extreme
medical play is definitely
extreme rope bondages.
We even talk about the religious shit, we didn't even get there because we got distracted, which we will totally revisit, by the way.
Yes.
Because that's a whole different bag of worms, isn't it?
Yes.
So, remember, trouble comes in threes.
And get fucked. Oh, is that whiskey toast? We're out of champagne, but we can...
But I toast anyways.